And there's a lot of pressure to have a close relationship with your mother because she supposedly took care of you when you were a child. And then it's really difficult to explain why why you're not close to your mother, why you're not taking care of her when she gets older and all that. So free of that societal pressure and expectation of being the caretaker of someone who never took care of me.
Hello, Amelia here. What you are about to listen to is a session between myself and an INFJ exploring of whether she can become an entrepreneur, the question that she's been thinking of for a while. This is the third and final session with that. This is real sessions with real fears, real doubts, real person. If you are interested in listening to the other two, as this is the final session, this is the wrap up, there are the links in the description below for you to go back and click onto. And in this session, we will be covering feeling threatened by being visible, getting clearer on messaging and reaching the right people with brand archetypes, using messaging to connect with audience so they resonate with you, being who you are with branding, being yourself and your true self to find the right people, and not sacrificing yourself for the right messaging and the fears and doubts that come along the way with those. I hope you enjoy. Hello, thank you so much for joining me for the third and final session exploring your dear and wonderful question of, can I actually be an entrepreneur? How have you been the past couple weeks?
Hi. So I've been on vacation for 2 of those weeks, so it has been a time of relaxing, but also a time of challenging inner work. So yeah, here I am.
Here I am. Excellent. And your homework last time was to look at the Sage branding, feel into it. And time off can be really nice because it allows your brain essentially to stop thinking, and it can start allowing that subconscious to start pulling things in and kind of making different different connections that way. So have you had any realizations with the Sage branding? Have you looked into that anymore? Have you had time to look into that anymore?
So I got a book on that called the Hero and the Outlaw, and I got started on reading it, but I haven't gotten very far, to be honest.
Yep.
With the Sage, in the sense of um, helping people to help themselves, getting them knowledge to help themselves, that is something that feels right to me, that feels authentic to me. So I do want to explore that more. And I had so before I went on vacation, there was like an evening event with a couple of expat ladies in my town, and we all talked a little bit about what we do for work. And I mentioned that I'm, training to be a mentor, and I talked a little bit about the four people within concepts and all that, and they were really interested. They were really like, "Ooh, that sounds interesting. Tell me more." So that was a good feeling, and it feels to me like that goes into the direction of the Sage. Like, here, this is knowledge. This is how I can, this is how it works for me. This is so interesting and it's so helpful for me. Let me give it to you, so you can use it as well. So that maybe goes a bit into that direction.
Yeah, and that also talks about and kind of loops back into what you were saying initially of doing really well with people one-on-one when you're talking to them in small groups. So that's another way just to show you one way that you can keep that has success for you, right? Because you might be really good at explaining that in ways that gets for people really excited.
Yeah.
So another way of showing you where you can, spread the truth. And it's not really the ultimate truth. It's like, how do you help people think for themselves, really? That's what the sage is about. It's like, how can you think better? How can you make better decisions? How can you think more clearly, more constructively, in ways that can help you do whatever you are wanting to do? So yeah. So what do you want to work on today with your question of, can I be an entrepreneur?
So, that's a that's a good question. I don't have an answer right away. Maybe, I don't know if I keep going back to the first session, but what popped up for me just before I went on this call was, why does it still feel so threatening and unsafe for me to try different things? It's it's really difficult for me to, like, it takes me a lot of inner work to even go to that point where I want to post something and, can I try this out? And there's so much resistance in me, and it's just so weird because I know it will work out. I know, like talking to people, it works out. I get positive feedback, and still there's so much resistance and so much fear in me of, I don't know, maybe it's online because there's I can't sort of grasp who the audience is and who will react and who won't. Um, yeah, but it's like in a personal interaction, it's easier for me to sort of show myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you said the threatening and unsafe to try new things. Posting online, have you been doing that? Like, have you had social media before?
Yeah, I have, but I always felt reluctant. Like I said before, I'm just on Facebook, so I don't have, like, I don't know, 10,000 different accounts.
Yeah.
And it was like I had friends really pushed me to get on there so we could stay in touch. And that was it for a long time. Mostly just seeing what other people did and, connecting with friends.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very, very different thing to sort of post for someone you don't know well, um, and trying to reach someone you don't know yet versus posting for people you're familiar with.
Yeah. And so when you say posting for people unfamiliar versus familiar, is that maybe why you do better in person? Because you're able to kind of judge people and see and understand them a little better than just putting something online and having no clue who's reading it.
Yes, yes. I'm pretty good at gauging the reaction or reading the mood and what's going on, and then sort of adapt to that. And yeah, that's not really easy or even feels like doable online. Yeah.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, online, you're right. You have no clue who's reading it. You have no clue who's not reading it. But there are ways to, if you define who you're talking about, like, so in your post, there's a way to filter people out from reading it who have no association and have no interest really in reading it. And some of that is like writing who it's for at the top of the post.
Mm-hmm.
And that can call people in, and that can also stop people. It's like, oh, I have no association with this. I'll read. Like, if someone wrote a post, if a friend of mine wrote a post for male rugby players, I would be like, I have no, like, this does not pertain to me at all, because I'm not a male. I've never played rugby ever. So there are ways you can filter that out a little bit online, but you have no control what other people, who's going to read it or who's not. And is that threatening to you?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it was interesting when you said you can sort of filter. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, so that is already helpful in how to adapt my post. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because the right people want to read what you want to say anyway. So it's just finding a way to have those eyes and the people who can relate to those struggles, the people who are wanting to think for themselves, but for some reason have all like the whatever hangups that you're wanting to have. So there are ways of like targeting those people who have those struggles, who especially could really use your voice, your content, what you're trying to say, the truth you're trying to put out there, the way you're trying to help them for themselves. There are, you know, things that you can post about that. And the question is, do you know who exactly you are trying to help?
Not quite. I haven't really defined that yet. Yeah. So I want to say women, just because I feel it feels more relatable to me because I'm a woman. Um, and then I guess women with parental wounding.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And how do they know that they have parental wounding?
Uh-huh. Good question. um,
And it's really what stage of the wounding do you want to help as well? Because there's different stages that people are at: the healing phase, the development phase, and then the self-actualization phase.
yeah, yeah. I'm somewhere in between the healing and the development. Yeah. I answered that question a couple months ago in my training program. I answered it with healing back then because I was really deeply in my own healing work. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something like one topic I really feel is one of mine is boundary work.
Yep.
And for that for boundary work to really work, um, part of it needs to be self-establishment. Like, who am I? What are my values? Um, what do I want to set boundaries around?
Yep. How am I different from other people?
Yeah.
And how can you help offer truth in that?
Mhm. That's a good question. There's something that's more basic than that is you deserve to have boundaries. You deserve to be your own person.
You deserve to think for yourself.
Yeah.
Like your thoughts are important. Your way of understanding the world is important.
Yeah.
Because that is very different than boundary work. Do you see the difference?
I do. It comes before it. For me, it comes before it.
Yeah, I'm just saying when you're talking to people, boundary work is like some vague thing that a lot of people talk about. But if you can narrow that down, it's like, so you have boundary work, but it's like, how does the sage see the boundary work? And then how does the sage help women with the boundary work?
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to take what you're trying to do, layer it over the sage, and that's how it can become more personal to people. And that's how it can help people understand what you're saying better.
Mm-hmm.
And it can make people go like, oh, this is what's going on for me. Or people who aren't challenged with that'll help them pass and go on to the next person. And you don't want to work with people who aren't right for you anyway. So
yeah.
And the sage is also all about freedom of the self as well.
Yes. Yes.
Like not relying on others.
Not relying on others, but also being free of not relying on others is definitely one part. But also being free of an abusive relationship, of of a attachment that is unwanted.
Abusive relationship, and you said of being unwanted.
Of an free of an attachment that is unwanted.
Yep.
So yeah, also free of societal expectation of how how family relations are supposed to be.
Yep. So are you more of a relationship person then? Helping people with
Yeah,
relationships?
yeah. Like there's this connection for me for with the it comes back to the parental wounding. Um, if you have so in my case, um, my mother was abusive, but most of the world thinks thinks of mothers as being, you know, of sort of all of them in general being good people and being self-sacrificing and all that. And there's a lot of pressure to have a close relationship with your mother because she supposedly took care of you when you were a child. And then it's really difficult to explain why why you're not close to your mother, why you're not taking care of her when she gets older and all that. So free of that societal pressure and expectation of being the caretaker of someone who never took care of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Um, I feel like if you were to explain that to someone who's in that position, who has no clue all of that's going on for them, I feel like they might miss what you're trying to say to them.
Okay.
Because you're a lot more informed about that than they are. They just know that they've got shit going on. They probably don't know what it is. Something's wrong. And they can't exactly spot it.
Mm.
They might not be aware that their relationship with their mom is messed up. They might not think that their boyfriend or their partner has some unhealthy stuff going on, and just think that that's normal, right? Because that's what was modeled for them.
Yeah.
But they might know something's wrong, but they might not know what the hell it is.
Yeah. So you're saying it, the way I phrased it was too complicated or too too interconnected, or
I feel like you would there's something that there's something that people have said, and it's funny, I think, because people have said this to me before. People who are getting into the mentoring business often find that they have a language that their clients do not. It's like a doctor talking to you about what's going on with you.
mm-hmm.
And the doctor probably can tell you all sorts of things about your tibia or your fibia being having this compound fracture versus this different kind of fracture, and then all the muscles around it, and you're going to have no clue what's going on. All that you know is that your bones have been you can't walk. Your legs fucked up. I think your tibia and your fibia that might be in your arm. So if someone's watching this, please correct me, or if you know, please correct me. But I know there's two bones, I think, either in your shin or your arm. But so it's like you have to talk to the people in the way that they understand, because they know that their body is in pain, but they might not know what's going on.
Yeah. But how do I figure out how do I feel into where because I don't want to, if I understood it right, there's also around the stage, there's also a warning not to be too simplistic.
I don't think you should be simplistic. All right. So just for everyone, this is the book that we're talking about. And there's many books about the branding archetypes, but I really like this one because to me, it's much more in depth of what's going on. And it definitely talks about branding. And so applying these to your business versus just applying them to yourself as a person. So in this book, so this is the Sage chapter. It just talks about different elements of the sage. So you can go through here, like the sage's motto, the truth will set you free. Core desire is the discovery of truth. The greatest fear is being duped, misled, or ignorant. And you can say that straight up. Like, my goal is to not mislead you. My goal is to help you lead or teach you how to lead your own way. That might feel really nice to them. In relationships, so you can get even more specific. Ignorant, so let's teach you where you are being ignorant and how to get yourself out of that so you can have the relationships that you really want versus the relationships that you've been programmed into and probably aren't making you feel very good. So saying things like that, is that making sense?
Yeah.
So you can, so it says like, so you can go through here and kind of, what I do is highlight what resonates with me and then go back and say like, okay, how can I say this in a way that relates to the women who are wanting amazing relationships, but are somewhere not, for some reason, not having them.
Mm-hmm.
So you can help so it says here, like it helps the customer make smarter decisions. So you can say in your copy, like, I will help you make better relationship decisions. So you stop being misled by yourself and you start making better decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's going to attract the people that really want to know and really want to learn as well, that you would do well with. You also want to make the customer feel smart for knowing. So like, I respect you where you're at. I respect you for what you know. I respect you for what you don't know about relationships, because we've all learned certain things, especially if you are unhappy with your relationship, if you're not being able to think for yourself and you turn to your partner all the time, like that's a way to talk about parental wounding. So it's like, how can you talk about parental wounding in a way that makes sense to them, but also has the sage element reflected over it? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is this answering your question?
Yeah. 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 You're giving good examples, and I'll rewatch the video to get the details.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually really like doing this for myself, because it's fun to be like, okay, how do I say it in this way that people can actually understand? Because the cool thing about this work, the archetypes with branding archetypes, is that you're essentially talking to people's subconscious. So you're talking to them in a way that draws them in, but they might not be 100% sure why. They're just like, oh my God, that's so me. That resonates with me. That resonates with who I am. And we're not trying to mislead people. It's like they already have the story going on within themselves, and we're just drawing that out into what, like, we're resonating with that, with who they are, so they can step forward and be more confident working with you. It's an easier yes, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Think for oneself and have one's opinions. Do you turn to your partner for what to do? Do you turn to your partner for what's going on? Are you afraid to tell your partner no? Are you afraid to disagree with your partner?
Yeah.
All of that's talking about boundaries with the sage.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah. And while you're saying that, I'm like, yes, this is so me. This resonates with me.
And that's the beauty of it. It's like when you pair this with the right person, it's like it's probably like you said, it's making you excited. And then you can talk about that with your marketing, whether it's with people, whether it's with the people online, however you want to do that. This is going to be way easier if you just want to go talk to people about how to have your own opinion. Where are you afraid to disagree with your mother? That's going to be a bang. Do you feel like you can't have your own opinion with your mom? Do you feel like you always have to say yes to your mom? Do you feel like you always have to say yes to your partner?
Yeah. Do you have the feeling you have to put other people's needs before your own? Yeah.
And people might not quite know what that is, but like, are you afraid to say no because you think other people might um not quite it. Afraid to tell. Can you repeat what you said?
What did I say? I said something like, do you feel like you have to put your mother's needs before your own? Do you feel like you have to care for your mother instead of her caring for you?
Yeah. Yeah, that second one is more descriptive versus the other one is a little more coach talk.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you can't think for yourself around your mom?
Yeah. Yes.
So all of that is saying, hey, you have boundary stuff. Hey, you've got parental wounding without saying that directly.
Yeah.
And talking about it in the way of the sage. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. Yes.
Because that's probably going to fire people up a lot more than like I help people with boundaries.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
this is also more interesting. It's like, oh, okay. I get what she's saying. That's kind of the point of that.
Yeah.
Was that helpful?
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else you want to work on?
No, actually, this is plenty. I think I need to, or I want to, try more examples and try to get into it more. But it is very helpful to find a way hmm, to interact with people who don't have the same knowledge, the same training that I have, which is important because obviously my clients won't have the training, otherwise they wouldn't become my clients. So yeah,
Yeah,
that
and
is
this
really helpful.
yeah, this is going to help you also feel more like you with your business, and it's going to be easier to stand out, and there's going to be less fear of competition. It's like, oh, so it's really it's this work is very impressive the more you lean into it in the right way. There's a lot of information out there that's not good about this, so just make sure, as you know, find the good information. And it even talks about like your marketing. So your marketing needs to be dignified and subdued with an elite air to it. So don't have some kind of childish writing for fonts. Don't have anything too feminine for fonts. Like if you want to look up elite brands, look up things like like Harvard or Stanford or the really top universities in the US. Those are all going to have an air of the sage to it. Most universities have an air of the sage, but the top ones are heavy, heavy, heavy sage because they are like, we have the information, and you get that legacy will stay with you because you'll be attached to our name.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing too feminine, nothing too, you can do what you want, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll probably feel like you anyway, because you probably don't want to have real childish writing. It's just another way to lean into who you are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How interesting. It's like you're teaching me another language. It's awesome.
What do you mean by another language?
Well, a lot of times I feel like I have all this knowledge inside of me, and I oftentimes don't know how to communicate that to people. And eh, you know, like what you just described about the how the how how you transport the stage through even, fonts and I don't know, stuff like that. It's really interesting. I I probably wouldn't have chosen any childish stuff anyway, but to be conscious of it is 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 really helpful. And sort of the also what you taught me about how to phrase it in a sage way and how to talk about parental wounding and boundaries, but not use those words, but instead apply it and give examples. Yeah, it's sometimes I struggle with uh, breaking down my abstract thoughts and my abstract knowledge into something that is more uh, applicable or like yeah, so people can see where it applies. I tend to stay in the abstract. Yeah.
Yeah. So this work is really all that particular work is really all about like who are you in business and how can you represent yourself in the realist way? That's what I'm all about. It's like how can you show up as your true self in business? So like you get rid of all the noise, you get rid of all the clutter, you get rid of all the shit that people tell you, oh, you got to say this, just say this, just say this. I think all of that shit, it's like, why don't you just say what you want to be saying in the way that you probably want to be saying it anyway? It's just kind of a guide for how to do that. And if people are willing to do that, marketing becomes easier. It becomes so much more fun. You start doing things that sound more like you, and people want to resonate towards you anyway when you step into those roles. So it's like, why would you not do this?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a way, it's an authentic way to be authentic, if that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely. And business will be more fun and people will want to keep going versus so many people quit and they stop trying to help because of like things like what you're talking about or blocks with parental stuff or like and it's like if people can learn simple things like that, then why it just makes it becomes more resilient. Marketing becomes easier, business becomes easier, and then people can keep making a difference rather than falling off path because of their own internal shit that's going on. Because that like breaks my heart at the end of the day. Like, why are you doing this to yourself when there's so much beauty that you can create in the world? So, yeah. What was your biggest insights for the 3 sessions and then the session for today?
Okay. So for today, the most helpful thing was how you guided me through to get to the bottom of what I want to say. Just by you guided me through it, and then you gave me examples, and that was really helpful. And uh, it's like, oh yes, this is me. This is how I can be me. This is how I do not have to change myself to reach people. On the contrary, this is how I can be authentic and reach the people that are right for me. That's pretty awesome.
Yep. Nice. And what was your biggest learning lesson of the 3 sessions we've done? Because this is sadly our third and final.
Yes. So today was the most helpful for the business part, but the first session with the homework was the biggest for like my inner healing journey around talking to my 10-year-old scientist, and that sort of started a process for me in the following weeks, and that really led me uh, to solve one of my biggest my biggest woundings and my biggest the biggest things holding me back. So that was really fundamental, actually. I thank you for that. I appreciate you.
Yeah, you are certainly welcome. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your desire to go there too, because if you weren't willing to go there, we couldn't do that. So, and for your question, can I be an entrepreneur? Where do you stand with that now?
um, I can learn to be one, would be the answer.
Yeah, because entrepreneurship isn't really like a birthright. It's really about resiliency. How much are you willing to keep going despite shit going wrong? As everyone has failures, everyone's gonna not do well, everyone's gonna fuck up. And there's no entrepreneur that has just done well. And if they have just done well, then their likelihood of their likelihood of keep going when shit hits the fan, because shit will hit the fan at some point, regardless of who you are, then their ability to handle that's going to be really fucking hard. So you can take all of these learning lessons of becoming more resilient, learning how to do that, and help you keep showing like, hey, I've already done this much. Why don't I just keep going a little further and see what I can do? So anyone can be an entrepreneur. It's more like, how much do you believe in yourself, and how much are you willing to not believe yourself when you say I should quit, and just see it as a sign of something going on with you rather than being a fact of you should quit. So
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you so much for your time with these 3 sessions.
Thank you for your help. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.